Russia's largest aerial assault on Kyiv this last weekend has underscored the failure of Donald Trump's claim to be a global peacemaker. The attack, which killed civilians and devastated government offices, came despite Trump's repeated promises to broker peace with Vladimir Putin. Instead of demonstrating restraint, Moscow's strikes have highlighted how Trump's overtures to the Kremlin have been met with disdain, emboldening rather than restraining aggression. His support for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has had similar consequences as Gaza endures relentless bombardment and humanitarian collapse under a policy of military dominance. Trump's preference for force over diplomacy extends beyond Europe and the Middle East. In the Caribbean, a U.S. strike on a Venezuelan vessel accused of narcotics trafficking killed 11 people, sparking accusations of extrajudicial killings and reckless overreach. In Yemen, American bombing campaigns, including the destruction of the Ras Issa port, a deadly strike on a migrant detention center, and the broader Operation Rough Rider, produce unprecedented civilian casualties. Collectively, these actions eroded America's reputation while deepening the suffering of those trapped in conflict zones. The pattern, though, is clear. Trump's foreign policy has often aligned Washington with authoritarian partners while normalizing militarized solutions. By tactically siding with leaders like Putin and Netanyahu, and by greenlighting U.S. missile strikes that devastate civilian populations, he undermines prospects for peace and violates international norms. Far from halting wars, his record reflects a world in which armed force is prioritized over diplomacy, leaving civilians in Kyiv, Gaza, Yemen, and beyond to pay the price with their lives. The latest bombardments in Ukraine and Gaza make his claims of a peacemaker ring hollow. His alignment with Putin and Netanyahu has allowed both leaders to pursue aggressive strategies with little fear of American pushback. Far from halting wars, Trump's foreign policy has coincided with their expansion. Trump's legacy is not one of peacemaking, but of escalation, whether in Kyiv's burning streets, Gaza's shattered neighborhoods, Yemen's bombed-out ports, or the Caribbean's contested waters. The world is left with the consequence of a U.S. president who claimed to end wars, but instead presided over their intensification. Donald Trump has increasingly styled himself as the president who ended foreign wars. His supporters point to ceasefires and peace deals reached under his regime, describing them as historic accomplishments that set him apart from past presidents. Trump often himself boasts, "I've stopped 6 wars. I'm averaging about a war a month," a line he has repeated on the campaign trail and at his Turnberry resort in Scotland. The White House has echoed this framing, crediting Trump's combination of economic pressure, trade leverage, and U.S. military power for diffusing conflicts across multiple regions. Aides highlight his supposed role in mediating disputes from the Middle East to Africa and Southeast Asia, while some of his allies have even suggested that his diplomacy makes him deserving of a Nobel Peace Prize. They ignore his closure of USAID, which will kill millions of the poorest people on the planet. Much of Trump's narrative either exaggerates America's influence or oversells temporary ceasefires as permanent peace. One of Trump's claimed victories was a ceasefire between India and Pakistan over the long-disputed territory of Kashmir. He said it came after a long night of US-led talks. Pakistan's Prime Minister publicly thanked him for his involvement. India, however, flatly rejected that interpretation, emphasizing that the ceasefire came directly from communications between the two countries' military commanders, with no U.S. mediation involved. This dispute illustrates how Trump's account often diverges from how events are understood by local leaders. Trump also cites his involvement in ending a violent flare-up between Israel and Iran. After Israel struck Iranian nuclear sites, Trump authorized U.S. forces to bomb heavily fortified facilities, including Fordo. Soon after, both sides agreed to a ceasefire. Analysts say U.S. involvement likely accelerated an end to hostilities, though it came at the cost of American direct military engagement. Whether this counts as peacemaking is debated. While it ended fighting quickly, it also risked escalation. In June 2024, Washington hosted a peace agreement between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, a conflict that has killed millions over 3 decades. Trump celebrated the deal as a triumph, but experts note it is only the latest in a long series of fragile accords, many of which have collapsed within months. The presence of armed militia like M23 makes long-term peace uncertain unless international actors remain engaged. Trump has claimed he stopped a war from breaking out between Kosovo and Serbia by threatening to withhold trade. Kosovo's president backed his account, but Serbia denied that any escalation was imminent. With little evidence of war preparations on the ground, experts say Trump may have overstated the danger in order to present himself as a successful mediator. The dispute over the grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which Egypt and Sudan fear will reduce their access to Nile River water, remains unresolved, despite Trump's attempts to mediate. Egypt welcomed his involvement, but Ethiopia dismissed his interventions, particularly after Trump suggested in 2020 that Egypt could blow up the dam. Critics argue his approach hardened divisions rather than resolved them. Trump points to his involvement in halting a border conflict between Cambodia and Thailand after days of deadly fighting. His administration warned both governments that trade talks would be suspended if the violence continued, and a ceasefire soon followed. Still, the agreement is seen as tenuous because it sidestepped the deeper territorial dispute at the heart of the conflict. Trump's assertion that he has stopped 6 wars simplifies a complex reality. In some cases, such as Israel and Iran, U.S. involvement did influence the outcome of a dangerous conflict. In others, such as India and Pakistan or Serbia and Kosovo, his role was minimal or disputed. Several peace deals he claimed credit for, like Congo and Rwanda, remain highly unstable. Experts say Trump's record reflects both overstatement and real, if limited, diplomatic gains. Trump has exaggerated his role in conflicts where peace remains elusive or temporary. And then there's Trump's celebrated Abraham Accords, signed in September 2020 under his administration, established normalization between Israel and several Arab nations, including the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan, in exchange for strategic concessions like the suspension of West Bank annexation and U.S. recognition of disputed territories. However, critics argue these deals bypass the core issue of Israeli-Palestinian peace and marginalize Palestinian rights. In fact, the Palestinians were not even invited to the negotiating table, reducing the accords to a transactional pact driven by economic or political gain rather than genuine reconciliation. In this light, the Abraham Accords are often characterized as superficial, fake peace arrangements, providing Israel with regional legitimacy without delivering meaningful outcomes for Palestinian statehood or resolving underlying injustices. Whether Trump will ultimately be remembered as a peacemaker-in-chief depends on the durability of agreements reached during his presidency. Ceasefires that collapse after a few months are unlikely to bolster his reputation, while unresolved disputes such as Ethiopia's dam and the ongoing war in Ukraine highlight the limits of U.S. influence. Still, Trump has succeeded in framing himself as a deal-maker on the global stage, a narrative that resonates with his political base. Even if experts contest the scale of his achievements, his claims of ending foreign wars had become a central part of his re-election pitch, one designed to contrast with decades of costly U.S. military entanglements abroad. Conversely, Trump is seeking to militarize the United States, abducting, kidnapping, and disappearing immigrants and citizens with his own private army. How that plays, with his supposed role as a peacemaker, remains to be seen. Just another day in the contradictory life of Donald Trump, the most performative president in American political history. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with MeidasTouch.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.